Moving on to the next segment of today's show, I wanted to talk about the major announcement that was made in the city of Chicago when it comes to their quarterback, as Bears head coach Matt Nagy has announced that Justin Fields, the rookie first-round pick from Ohio State, will be the Bears starting quarterback in their Week 3 matchup against the Cleveland Browns on the road, and we have plenty to react from this decision. I'll start off by saying this. I'm a big believer when it comes to the NFL in 2021 that even though it obviously isn't easy for a rookie quarterback to come in right away and learn the offense and be good, and as a rookie, it's tough. I don't think everyone is expecting Justin Fields to be the next Andrew Luck and lead a team with head coach Chuck Pagano, who Bears fans are very familiar with, and Ryan Grigson is their GM. I don't think anyone was expecting Justin Fields to come in right away and be the next Andrew Luck. But I'm a big believer. When you have a young quarterback, you have to take advantage of the window they're in. And I think that's very possible, at least more likely happening today, opposed to 10, 15, 20 years ago, because quarterbacks are brought into college from these satellite camps that go on while they're in high school, and they just have a better idea of how to read pro-level defenses. They have a much better idea, and they are running much more college-friendly offenses in the NFL today than they did during that time 10, 20, 15 years ago. And when it comes to Justin Fields and the Bears roster certainly isn't perfect, right? I think their defense, while it was one of the best defenses in the league 2-3 years ago when Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith, Eddie Jackson, all those guys were there, and they were one of the best defenses in the NFL, over the past year or two, the Bears' defense has been a little disappointing. Not to say that they've been a bad unit, but they haven't really been able to carry the team to victories like they were 2 years ago. At the same time, it is totally fair for you to make the argument that Mitch Trubisky was just that bad as a starting quarterback, and that's why the Bears teams of the last 2 years just hasn't been good. But when it comes to Justin Fields, I guess I understand the narrative and the reasoning as to why Andy Dalton started their Week 1 game against the Los Angeles Rams. That was a tough spot, and when you consider the fact that the Bears, even though their offensive line has played okay, at least better than it's expected to start the season, I understood the nerves putting Justin Fields behind that Bears offensive line, who no one really expected to be good, going up against the Rams' ferocious defensive line and Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd, guys that could just clearly get to the quarterback. But it's Week 3, and if you look at the Bears' schedule, they are approaching the softer part of it. After their game in Week 2 against the Cincinnati Bengals, which they were able to win, they now sit with the record of 1-1, tied for first place at the top of the NFC North with their rivals, the Green Bay Packers. But their next couple games, it's at Cleveland, home against Detroit, at the Raiders. And I get the Raiders have been playing really well, and their defense has been playing really well, but I don't think the Raiders' defense is that tough of a matchup for quarterbacks, especially when you compare it to some of the other defenses in the NFL. And basically the point I'm trying to make here is that I think if the Bears were ever going to let Justin Fields play early, this would be the time to do it and just let him gain some confidence. If I'm the Chicago Bears, and look, I don't think the Bears' situation around their quarterback isn't as bad as what we've been seeing with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville and what we've been seeing with Zach Wilson in New York. Obviously, both of those young quarterbacks are struggling right now, and I think the situation that's going on around them has a lot to do with it. I don't think the Bears' situation is that bad, even though it's far from ideal. I get their offensive line isn't great, but Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, David Montgomery is a really good running back. And Matt Nagy, I understand he has been disappointing as a head coach over the last couple of years. I did like some of the offensive schemes he was showing in that game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So I think the Bears need to use the struggles of the young quarterbacks like Wilson and Lawrence in the league to their advantage and say, okay, we have to learn and we have to coach up our young quarterback and tell him that he doesn't have to win the game every play by himself. He just needs to take what the defense gives him and just get adjusted into the game. Make all of the easy throws that you have to make. Because here's the thing with Justin Fields, right? I have no doubt from an athleticism and from a physical perspective, this guy is ready to be an NFL starting quarterback. I have no doubt about that. He is one of the 3 or 4 fastest quarterbacks in the league. He has a really strong arm. He is used to playing in front of big crowds in big games like he was able to do at Ohio State and at Georgia. I'm still really surprised, to be honest. He fell in the NFL draft to the Chicago Bears. They had the number 12 pick. So I think from a physical perspective, Justin Fields is all set and ready to go. Where the problems come in is that we just don't know if he knows the playbook 100%. And we saw the one big hit that he took in that preseason game against the Buffalo Bills. And if you're a Bears fan, like, that is the one thing, if Justin Fields is on the field, you don't want to see. You don't want to see him getting absolutely lit up by defenses, almost in a similar way that Tua Tagovailoa played against the Buffalo Bills on his injury that got him a couple of his ribs. Like, Tua got dodged by that defensive player, and that is something that you do not want to see happen to your young quarterback. So as long as Justin Fields is ready and is capable, and I totally understand the only real guy that knows the answer to that is Matt Nagy, but at the same time, if you're the Bears, I feel like you would have to prioritize getting Justin Fields ready and as used to the playbook as soon as you possibly can, just because your window around your young rookie quarterback, it's open, and you have a real opportunity, especially with Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith and Akeem Hicks and Eddie Jackson on your defense. Like, I understand your defense isn't as good as it once used to be, but I feel like if Justin Fields develops and becomes a really good quarterback, I wouldn't be shocked if the Bears are in the playoffs sooner rather than later. And I know I mentioned Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence and just the terrible situations they've been in, but at the same time, look at some of the other quarterbacks around the league that actually play for competent and smart-run organizations and what they've accomplished throughout the first couple years of their NFL career. Patrick Mahomes won an MVP in his second season in the NFL, and it was only his first year as the starting quarterback. And I know you're going to say Alex Smith was the starting quarterback for Kansas City to start off that season, and if Mahomes doesn't sit out that 1 year, who knows if he wins the MVP? That's true, but that's just a totally different circumstance, because when you looked at the Kansas City Chiefs, Alex Smith was a quarterback that was winning playoff games left and right. He was always a consistent winner for the Kansas City Chiefs. Meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes was playing in the Big 12, and really, up to that point, we had just never seen a Big 12 quarterback come into the NFL right away and be able to take the job and run with it. We also look at Lamar Jackson. He's a guy that has won in his second year, an MVP in year 2. He also led his team to the playoffs in year 3. We've seen flashes of excellence from guys like Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. And look, it's funny, Justin Herbert, his offensive line around him last year was terrible. Anthony Lynn still doesn't know how to manage the clock. I'm sure you guys saw that on Monday Night Football the other night. And originally the Chargers were going with Tyrod Taylor under center, and Justin Herbert didn't have a full preseason. He didn't have a normal training camp with COVID and everything that was going on there. He really didn't have the ideal start to his rookie season, but he comes in right away, and what happens? He throws, 36 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and becomes the offensive rookie of the year. And for the first time, really, since the Chargers moved to Los Angeles, there seems to be some notable buzz about this Charger team, really thanks to their young quarterback in Justin Herbert. And I think that is a lesson that when it comes to the Chicago Bears and the development of Justin Fields, obviously, if he is not ready, you're not going to play him right away. If he doesn't know the playbook, if he's not 100% comfortable, and if you're, as a head coach in Matt Nagy, not 100% comfortable in playing him, but at the same time, Justin Fields is a guy that you drafted in the first round for a reason, because you think that there's a good chance he could take over this franchise quarterback position and run with it and be a really good leader on the football field, because no one is saying from a physical perspective he can't do it all. It's just the mental part now. And I think as a quarterback, he's just going to have to show that he could take advantage of it. And look, this matchup against Cleveland on the road in week 3, it's not an ideal matchup. I'm not expecting Justin Fields to come in and light the world on fire right away. But at the same time, I do think that the experience is going to be good for him. And maybe this provides a spark to the Bears in the locker room. There are plenty of people in that locker room, I'm sure, that think when you compare Justin Fields to Andy Dalton from a physical perspective, Justin Fields is clearly the better guy. And Andy Dalton, he's had an all right career. Like, he did some really good things in Cincinnati when he had guys like A.J. Green and Jeremy Hill in his prime around him. Like, those Bengals teams were really good. But at the same time, that is 6-7 years ago now. And you have a young quarterback in Justin Fields that, from a physical perspective, is ready. It's just the question is he comfortable mentally, and does he know how to make all the plays for this Bears offense? And Matt Nagy even said that when both quarterbacks are healthy, he does expect Andy Dalton to be the guy. I'll say this, if Justin Fields could lead the Bears on the road in Cleveland to a win somehow, some way in week 3 right now, the Browns are a 7-point favorite, then this job is going to be his. If he beats the Lions at home in week 4, which is a game that I believe the Bears really should win no matter who is under center. They then go to the Raiders, they host the Packers, go to Tampa Bay, host the Niners. Like, the schedule will get a little bit harder from there, but at the same time, I just think Justin Fields needs the experience. He needs the growing pains, and if he's going to mess up, it is better that he learns those lessons sooner rather than later. And once again, if you wanted to start Andy Dalton for the Week 1 game against the Los Angeles Rams, I get it. It was a tough spot. I personally would have started Justin Fields, but okay, you didn't believe in your offensive line. You were playing on the road on Sunday Night Football against one of the best teams in the NFL. But if I'm a Bears guy right now, I'm fully expecting Justin Fields to be the starting quarterback from now till the next 20 years. Like, this is his job now. It should be his time to run with it. And if I'm a Bears fan, I'm excited to see how the Justin Fields era starts. I understand that game against the Bengals wasn't ideal. He made some plays, but he really wasn't great. He wasn't spectacular. But now with the full week of a game plan being executed, a full week of practice as the QB1, Justin Fields should be ready to go and should be ready to take this opportunity against the Cleveland Browns. I hope Andy Dalton gets better. Obviously, it sucks. He was told that he was the QB1 in Chicago, but then in the draft, Justin Fields ends up falling to the Bears, and we know the rest is history. I will say, though, in the NFL, you shouldn't take promises like that too seriously just because things change on such an often basis. Maybe the Bears did think that their best way to win this year was taking a gap year with Andy Dalton and then searching for their next quarterback, but it turns out their next quarterback really just fell into their lap, and it's Justin Fields' time in Chicago. I'm really excited to see how this era unfolds.